I'm Lin-Manuel Miranda, and you're listening to Hard NOC Life.
Well, it's the NOC in full color. You see me? The Hard NOC Life. Comics, movies,
Welcome to Hard NOC Life. I'm Keith Chow.
I'm Britney Monet.
Britney, we didn't get to talk last week when The Flash came out, but I know a lot of people did not like this movie. And the podcast that I recorded with Swara, which was a couple weeks earlier when we both seen like early cuts of the movie, we were very effusive in our praise of the film. It has since come out, and not only did it like not meet box office expectations, it like I'm pretty sure you can call it a flop. It didn't even meet its low end expectations, and I guess you can say is truly the end of the DCEU, and it goes off in a sputter. But before we get into all of the talk about the Flash flopping, what that means for the future of DC, I wanted to let you have a chance to share your thoughts. Because I know I tried to hint at a couple things, a couple spoilers before to get you excited, and I don't think it worked.
I mean, I will say that like it's one of those. It's a okay movie. It's not like as terrible as some other people are making it out to be. However, I do 100% agree that the CGI cameos were just not it, especially like for the actors who are still alive, that they could have been like, can we just like, can you come in and like, I'm pretty sure that most of them would have said yes.
Before we get any, I mean, I don't think it's even worth spoiler alerts anymore because the movie's been out 2 weeks and people who give a shit have already seen it. And you don't give a shit, and clearly not that many people give a shit about the film. But I just want to put out there, we'll spoil things that were secret until before the movie came out. So with that, yeah, continue.
Yeah, so so there's a part where you're kind of like see into all the different, like for 2 seconds of the different multiverses. And I think it was really distasteful using Christopher Reeves because I feel like he would not have liked it. And then people found a clip of him talking about like what the movie industry is and how they try to like make more money off of nostalgia. And it's just like what happened to, you know, people who actually like movies, making movies. So then it was just like, okay, yeah, he would not have vibed with them using, you know, a very not good CGI thing of him. Like, so it's like that part, like, I was like, he would have been mad about that. And then, so that didn't sit well with me. And then they used Nick Cage, but they used like deep fakes of from when he had like did a costume fitting for Superman. When I was like, why couldn't they just use like now Nicolas Cage?
Like, I'm a little confused about the Nick Cage cameo because you and I talked about, well, when I tried to like hint at his appearance in the film before you saw it, I remember when you were doing a podcast without me a couple weeks ago, you had mentioned like Nick Cage should be in more things because you were talking about Renfield and stuff. And I was like, hey, remember you were saying about Nick Cage? Wait till you see The Flash. And what's really wild is that Andy Muschietti had spoiled it in an interview that I fortunately hadn't read at the time. I was like, oh, let me not read that because I don't want to know who. I wanted to be surprised, you know. And apparently, so I read the interview after I saw the film, and apparently Muschietti said like he actually worked with Nick Cage and got him in the costume. So I wonder if they filmed him and then de-aged him. Because he talked about working together and getting him in the suit. So I mean, but you're right, like he looks plastic it
looks plastic. Yeah, it doesn't look like, and you know, and we know that like MCU's for the most part has like perfected their deep fake stuff. But like even then I feel like it just would have been weird because it's like you could have just asked like him to be normal looking, I guess. If that really is him, it was just like a weird thing. And then like even there's a shot earlier in the movie where I think where it's Henry Cavill, like, and it's CGI, and I'm just like, what? Yeah, you guys still had Henry Cavill. Why is he CGI? Like that made no sense. And then the one who's Jay Garrick, I'm pretty sure it's Teddy from The Flash.
Well, it's not. So that's the other thing. That's a lot of people were confused.
Exactly like him.
Because Teddy Sears, it was even like gave a comment saying people were saying I'm in this movie. I am not in this movie. So like some of the rumors I heard is that they kind of like AI'd Jay Garrick, which is we'll talk about AI in a second, but like, and they probably just like they probably put in the prompt, give me a Jay Garrick, and then the AI was like, oh, I remember when Teddy Sears played Jay Garrick, and they kind of morphed him and John Wesley Shipp. So this is something I think Swar and I talked about on our podcast on the spoiler part, is that full disclosure, we both dug the cameos, but I think our complaint at the time was it was too Batman Superman focused. Your point about Jay Garrick, it's like, or the fact that there are live actors who've played the Flash. This is a Flash movie at the end of the day.
Mhm.
So there should have been more Flash cameos.
Yeah.
If nothing else, bring in Grant Gustin, bring in John Wesley Shipp, bring in Kyle Gallner from Smallville, bring in Michael Rosenbaum as like an animated Flash or whatever. Like what, like there's so many people who've played the Flash. Bring in Kanan Lonsdale as Wally, like it would have been cooler to see different versions of Flash, because at the end of the day, it's a Flash movie.
Yes.
So that's what and the fact that Ezra was on the TV show, but we couldn't get Grant in the movie, like that makes no sense to me.
Yeah, that made absolutely no sense. And I feel like I really hate saying it, but I feel like the TV show did the Flash point a lot better and more emotionally depth than the movie had. And in a way, it's like you've been working on this movie for what, 6 to 8 years or so, and this movie is still what it is.
Like Ezra was announced as the Flash like the day after the show debuted, right? Like, and I remember being pissed off about it because it's like the pilot of The Flash came out on the CW. It was awesome. And it was like one of the biggest debuts on the history of the CW. And the next day, Warner Brothers was like, oh, and here's Flash we've cast for the movie. And we're like, it gave me like vibes of like when Smallville was out and Tom Welling was such a great Clark Kent. And they're like, oh, but we've cast this other Superman. It's like, don't give me another Superman when I have a great one right here. Same thing with The Flash, right? It was like, why do we need Ezra when we already have Grant Gustin? And the movie's been in production hell for so long that Ezra was announced the day after the Flash TV show debuted. And the movie doesn't come out until a month after the show ended its 9-year run.
Yes. And then the fact that the show honestly, the show is so much better than this movie. Like, yeah, there's a part where the show maybe falls off a little bit, but it doesn't fall off as what this movie is. Like, there was moments in the movie that were funny, though, I will say.
I wonder if Grant was like, I don't want to be in this.
He could have been, because
there's a chance that he'd be like, they came to him and like, hey, would you like to shoot a cameo for the movie? He's like, fuck no.
Yeah, he could have said no, but there was just, and the thing is like, Ezra isn't a bad actor, so like I can't like lie and just say just because like they're a terrible person that their performance isn't decent. It's just everything else around the movie is just still like.
I think Ezra does give a great performance, and not to excuse their behavior, because of course they are accused of some wild shit, but it does make me wonder, like, I fully acknowledge we live in a different time, and it's good that we're holding people to account for the shit they do. But it does remind me of like Robert Downey Jr. did some wild shit too. And the whole point of him being cast as Iron Man was like Jon Favreau even talked about, like, it was a risk. The studio was like, that dude's not reliable. He's got a history of drugs and alcohol and all that. Like, he would be like trespassing in people's bedrooms all of a sudden, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So I'm not equating Robert Downey Jr. and Ezra Miller, but like, celebrities are known to do weird shit and problematic stuff. You know what I mean? Yes. And some of the stuff Ezra is accused of, I fully understand is beyond the pale. But like, it's just wild that like, Robert Downey Jr. is kind of, people have forgotten the shit he used to do back in the 90s, But anyway.
Yeah. Obviously Michael Keaton is great. It's Michael Keaton, but I kind of hate that they like undercut his moment of being like, badass and awesome within like one of the Ezras throwing up. Like, and I was just like, oh.
What I wanted to ask you, what did you think of Michael Keaton overall? Like, he's the reason that I will defend this movie, because like,
he's the best part of the movie.
Yeah. I would definitely go back and rewatch it just for the Batman stuff.
I feel like, I don't know if I would rewatch it again, but he is the like best part of the movie.
I liked Ben's stuff. I said this in our review last week, but
like I feel like all of the Batmans were great, all 3 of them.
Well, great. Let's get to that. Let's get to the third one, because the other thing that I kind of like hinted at for you was, you're one of the few people, let's admit it, on the internet who caps for Batman and Robin.
Yes, I love that movie.
And so I was like, this movie might canonize Batman and Robin.
So, okay, I thought like it was just gonna be in the like the multiverse
Right.
part. So I'm just like, I kept waiting for
Yeah, Keith told me George Clooney was in this. What's going on?
you didn't say George Clooney. You just said it canonized.
Right,
So I
right.
was thinking maybe it was gonna be the one who played Robin. I can't remember his name right now.
Chris O'Donnell.
Chris O'Donnell. Okay,
Mhm.
yeah. I kept like thinking maybe they'll show like Chris O'Donnell or like Alicia Silverstone or maybe even Uma Thurman or whatever. Because everyone always talks about how great Uma Thurman is.
Oh yeah,
more
yeah.
than,
That would be
like,
dope. Yeah.
you know, so I kept waiting maybe like they would show up in the little like multiversal part thing or whatever. And that didn't happen. It's like, okay. And then when he's on the phone, I was like, I know that voice. Like, I was like, that's George Clooney. And I kind of said it a little bit too loud. And then people were like, what the fuck? Like I had a couple of people in the row ahead of us like, what the fuck? Why did it be George Clooney? And then it is George Clooney. And they were just like, and I saw them look back like,
I'm blaming you. It's your fault.
But I was so excited because I was like, it's George Clooney. I would like to see him back as Batman, but
Well,
like,
I mean, I wouldn't be opposed if he actually was the DCU's Batman, because if you think about it, in the Gunverse, he's supposed to be an older Batman because he's got a kid, like Damien's his son. So like,
yeah,
the fact that, I mean, I do think it's weird that like James Gunn was very adamant about going younger for Superman, but then keeping Batman old. But that was the DCEU was like that. It had an older Batman, and young Superman. So like, whatever. But I wouldn't be against. Let's just put it this way: I wouldn't be against Clooney sticking around. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's very much just a joke to end the movie on, which is a little unfortunate at the same time, because it's like, I mean, here's a wild. We were talking about the production hell that this movie's gone through. What's wild about the Flash movie is that it's kind of had to be shepherded through 3 major like executive shakeups at Warner Brothers, because the movie was put into production under the old regime, right? Like I said, it was announced in like 2014. It was supposed to be the movie that came out right after Justice League. Like, if you remember that old, like, remember when they used to put out slates of movies and it was supposed to be BVS, Suicide Squad, Wonder Woman, Justice League, and then The Flash was the first movie coming out of Justice League, and then Aquaman, and then Shazam. Like, this was supposed to come out a long time ago. And so it was brought in under that like regime at Warner Brothers. I think the Jeff Johns and like those cats. And then, after the DCEU kind of like belly flopped at the box office, they did that course correction, and they brought in Walter Hamada to be the head of DC. And he was like, I'm divorcing the DCEU. We're going to move away from Henry Cavill. We're moving away from Ben Affleck, and we're going to use this movie, reset the universe, and we're bringing back Michael Keaton. And like the original ending that was shot, and there's like set photos of the exact scene where Michael Keaton's wearing the suit that George Clooney's wearing. And the ending was supposed to be when Barry comes back to his present, he sees the Michael Keaton Batman again. He's all of a sudden the Batman of his universe. And then Sasha Calle shows up. And that was the original ending. And it's like, these are going to be the Batman and Supergirl of the future. And that was Walter Hamada's whole like deal. Of course, the movie keeps getting delayed. And then at the same time, Warner Brothers gets bought out by Discovery.
Yeah.
And at the time, they didn't spin off DC Studios yet. Zaslav had named 2 executives to run DC. That was Pamela Adby and Michael DeLuca. And they were the ones who Dwayne Johnson went to, was like, hey, I want to put Henry Cavill at the end of Black Adam. And they were like, go for it. That's awesome. And so he puts Henry Cavill in Black Adam. And after that, Henry Cavill does his whole I'm back as Superman. And so they reshoot the ending. Like, it's not just Michael Keaton and Sasha Calle. They reshoot the ending where Barry comes back, sees Keaton, sees Supergirl, but also sees Wonder Woman and Henry Cavill. And they shot it. Like, there's footage out there of Henry Cavill, Gal Gadot, Sasha Calle, and Michael Keaton welcoming Barry back to the present. And that was going to be the ending. And then, this is so wild. They announced James Gunn and Peter Safran are going to spin off DC Studios and do their own thing. And then they were like, fuck Henry Cavill.
Yeah.
And they're
entirely.
like, we don't want that. So let's reshoot it again. And they called up George Clooney, like, hey, can you come down to the set for like 5 minutes? And they reshot the whole ending, got rid of Keaton, got rid of Calle, got rid of Gadot and Cavill. And then that's the ending we got, is the George Clooney. Isn't that wild?
That's so like, oh my gosh. And I think what bothers me is about the Henry Cavill stuff is like, why is he the only one out of them CGI? Like, there's an after credit scene with Jason Momoa, and it's actually Jason Momoa. You know, we see we see Gall in the movie. We act, obviously Ben Affleck, and so it's just like, why is Henry Cavill the only one who got CGI? Like, did y'all hate him that much?
Yeah, like someone at Warner just got something against Cavill, I think, like because he's the one that gets dicked around always.
He seems like, at least like from what we have seen of him, he seems like he's the nicest one. So it's just like, I mean, he could actually secretly be like the worst person ever.
Yeah.
But from what we know of him, he seems like he's the nicest one, and he, generally loves being Superman. So it's like, come on.
Yeah.
And you know what? They could have at least, and instead of having Christopher Reeves, as much as I know they wanted to hit nostalgia, Brandon Routh would have been like a good set in for that. Like, he was so good.
I mean, he was supposed to be the Christopher Reeve Superman anyway. Like the whole Crisis on Infinite Earths, which again, to your point about CW doing the multiverse better, or CW doing the Flash better, they did the multiverse better too, because the cameos that they did on Crisis, I thought were still, to your point, like respectful of the nostalgia, not just like like the fact they brought back Burt Ward from the 60s, that they couldn't get Michael Keaton, so they got Robert Wool. So it was like they still gave you the nostalgia feels without having to like resort to some pretty shoddy CG.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel bad.
So what's weird too is that like the cut I saw, right? And I talked about this with Swar. So I'd seen a cut, I think the one that they had been sharing at CinemaCon and things like that, where they were like, the CG's not finished. I didn't even get the George Clooney ending. Like when I watched it, it just cuts when Ezra says, "Who the fuck are you?" And it just ends. Like, we don't even see who the Batman is. So I had no idea until Swar actually spoiled it for me when we did our review. Because he was like, I saw the finished movie.
Okay.
And so what's weird is that, like, I was under the impression that I thought the CG was bad when I watched it, but I thought, well, I got unfinished CG. But apparently it was
bad in every version.
Which is weird, too, because this movie, again, even after all the weird stuff, it was delayed 2 years. It was supposed to come out in 2020.
Yeah, but it just feels like most of the CGI should have been perfected.
Well, Machete says that's intentional, that like they purposefully wanted like all the stuff in the Speed Force to look artificial, which is, if that's the case, good job. You did what you set out to do, because that shit does look artificial. But
I mean, yeah, but like, is that like, is he, I don't know. I feel like that's an excuse. I'm not trying to like assume the worst in him either, but like,
well, but speaking of Machete and speaking of Batman and Robin in a roundabout way, one of the things that got announced as the movie was opening before it flopped, which is kind of bad timing, I guess, is James Gunn and Peter Safran announced that Machete was going to direct Batman Brave and the Bold, which is their universe's Batman movie, which is based on the Grant Morrison run where Damian Wayne is introduced as Robin. And again, this was before the movie flopped, but I will say the Batman stuff in Flash was the best stuff. So
yeah,
do we think Machete would do a good job directing the Brave and the Bold?
I hope so. And maybe like his movie would be better without so much of like the studio change up and stuff. I want to hope.
And we don't know that they won't change the studio up again, because like Zaslav, that dude has been taking a hammer to Warner Brothers over the last couple of weeks.
We don't even know the future now of DC, because apparently they're selling a whole bunch of stuff.
It's weird.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I hope that he would do a decent job, but like after seeing this movie, and it's like, I don't know how much of it is obviously like the constant studio change up, or if it really is just Andy himself. Like, I don't know.
Well, I've never seen the It movies, so have you seen It?
I will say the first It is really good, and the second one is kind of where it's like, okay. Like, there's decent stuff in the second one, but the first one is just like really, really good. So based off of the first one, yeah, sure. But, with now the Flash and the second It movie, I would say, I don't know, dude. But I don't know.
Well, I mean, DC is in a precarious position right now because their last 3 movies have all flopped. Like, legit flopped. Like, Shazam was bad.
Yeah. Black
Adam may have broken even. There was a whole debate between The Rock and the studio about making money or whatever. I thought both movies were fine. They're forgetful.
Yeah.
I forgot they came out this year. You know what I mean? It's like, but they're not the way you want to wrap up your universe. And so we have Blue Beetle still to come. We have Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom still to come. And we're in this like weird space where the Flash was supposed to quote unquote reset the universe, but it doesn't seem like it did.
No.
And even if it did, no one gives a shit because the movie flopped, and everyone is like, the press around the Flash is even making it worse for DC. And it's funny because like the whole reason that they canceled Batgirl, that they say, not because of the tax cut, but because it would have hurt the branding, right? Like the movie was so bad, the DC brand would have been affected. But it like the Flash, Shazam 2, and Black Adam, those three are not huge PR messes. How bad could Batgirl have been? You know what I'm saying?
I just want to know, like, was that movie that bad? Like, and then they were just saying, like, oh, the reason why we're still putting out the Flash is because it's like the best thing we've done. Like, they were really, they were saying that,
Yeah.
and like they were just saying, oh, like people are gonna love this, blah blah, blah. And they hyped up that movie so much that even James Gunn hyped it up. So when I went to go see it, I was like, oh,
felt
this is
betrayed.
not. I felt so like, oh, okay. And yeah, maybe it was their faults too for hyping up so much that when people went to go see it, they were like, this is shit. Like, what?
Well, the thing too about Batgirl, it's like, okay, so it's directed by the guys who did Bad Boys for Life, right? And who directed several episodes of Ms. Marvel. So they were hot.
Yeah.
And it starred Leslie Grace coming off of In the Heights, first Latinx, Afro-Latina Batgirl. That's dope. Brendan Fraser, who's going through an Oscar campaign at the time, his big comeback, the renaissance of Fraser's career was playing Firefly. And Michael Keaton, the best part of The Flash, was going to be Batman. Like, that's batting 4 for 4.
Exactly.
That movie
like,
should at the very least, they should like change course and release that movie, because again, they've probably lost more money on The Flash than whatever tax cut not releasing Batgirl is going to give them.
Exactly. It probably would have hit a little bit better. I don't know. It's just so like it's just so funny that they were just like, yeah, well, these are the movies that are coming out because we think these are better than that, and we don't want. And then this movie is just like, no, this.
And I mean, no shade to Blue Beetle, right? But Blue Beetle was put into production the same time as Batgirl. It was designed to be a Max streaming movie too.
Yeah.
Right. Like the whole like, well, it looks like a streaming movie. Like, what does that even mean nowadays? Like, if you look at Netflix, like they put out. Admittedly, I've never watched them, but apparently these Chris Hemsworth movies are like hot shit. Extraction.
I've seen the first one. The first one's really good.
It looks like a blockbuster, right? Like those movies look like real movies. Like they have a Gal Gadot movie coming out. They did, and we're going to talk about this whole Netflix thing in my Nerd Poppin', but like straight to streaming movies are not like Disney original movies. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
kind of low budget, whatever. Like they look like real fucking movies.
I will say though, some of the Disney Channel original movies looked better than The Flash. I will say that. So,
well, one thing I did think is that like I used to like think some of the CG on the TV show Flash was sus, but like compared to the movie, some of those Grant Gustin running scenes don't look half bad compared to some of the stuff they did in this movie. But yeah, I mean, so like again, no shade to Blue Beetle, but like it's almost like if Blue Beetle could get a theatrical release based on the same essential budget that Batgirl was, how could you not release Batgirl at this point?
Yeah, and the thing is, I haven't seen a trailer for Batgirl, so I can't say what it looks like. But for Blue Beetle, it looks like it's going to be a fun movie. Is it going to be actually good? I don't know.
I doubt it's going to make any money.
But it looks fun. I'm very excited to go see it. But yeah, I don't know how much money it's going to make or whatnot, but it looks like it's going to be a fun movie. So it's just kind of like, yeah, you could have at least given
but Aquaman, like I feel like Aquaman's going to tank. I don't think anyone's going to care about Aquaman.
I still have not seen the first one.
And it's wild that Aquaman is the only true success of the DCEU. Not even Wonder Woman. Momoa. But not even Wonder Woman, not even Justice League made $1 billion. Like Aquaman made $1 billion.
Because Jason Momoa is the main.
Jason Momoa has never made $1 billion on anything else. Like, what is it about that made $1 billion?
Because he's shirtless. I haven't seen the movie, but look, my aunt talks about Aquaman all the time. So I'm telling you, those older women were like, I'm gonna go.
So maybe, maybe Lost Kingdom will turn it around. I doubt it. I mean, I feel like DC is it's hard to be a DC fan right now, I will say.
Yeah, I would just say Matt Reeves is the only one doing something right.
Yeah. Well, and then 2024 is going to be a weird year because it's in between like the old regime and then like Superman Legacy is not supposed to come out until 2025. So the only movies coming out in 24 are two Batman movies that have nothing to do with either universe, right? The Joker 2 and Batman 2 are coming out in 2020.
And there's a lot of people who are upset about the Joker too because it's going to be a musical, which I'm so
psyched for. Like that's
I didn't like the first one.
But the best part, like the fact that they were like, you know what, we're going to do a musical and we're going to cast Lady Gaga as Harley Quinn. I'm like, that they're, you know what, they're trolling the people who liked the first movie. And I respect that.
I'm totally gonna see that one. Like, I'm very excited for that one. I will see it in theaters.
Well, and like again, we kind of hinted at it earlier. Like, David Zaslav, the CEO of Warner Brothers Discovery, has shown that he is not afraid to like fuck shit up, right? Like you mentioned, it came out in the news recently that like they're selling off like half of their music catalog. So like the most iconic themes in the history of cinema are like up for sale. Like he's gutted like all of the cable channels, including Turner Classic Movies, which was so bad that like Steven Spielberg and like Martin Scorsese had to call him up, was like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
He hired this dude to run CNN and ran it into the ground. He's like, oh shit, you did a bad job, and he fired him. And like, I can't promise that James Gunn and Peter Safran are still going to run DC Studios by the time Superman Legacy comes out.
Exactly. And not even like, and it's not even that you can't say that they're doing a good or bad job, is because they came on after like, you know, certain things were already done or whatever. So it's just like, it's hard to fully like blame them.
But it's like, but the studio has a history of like announcing shit and then canceling shit. And then like the Flash movie itself, like I said earlier, it was like such a microcosm of all the upheaval in Warner Brothers. That is, it had to shoot 3 different endings just because it was like different people at the head. And again, like, you know, the fact that you got this person running Warner Brothers who's like seems to just is willing to like just take a hatchet to the entire company, like split. Like there was also, I don't know if you saw in the news, like he's going to be licensing some shows to other streamers. So like Insecure might not be on HBO Max anymore. Like he already sold off Westworld, so you can't find Westworld on Max. You know what I mean? Like these iconic HBO shows are going to be on like other services just because they want to make more money doing that than keeping it for themselves. It's just like, what are you doing, man? I don't want to hear the Batman theme being used on like, I don't know, like a Disney property or something like that. Like, why are you selling off like iconic music from, I don't know. Well, it's just, I feel like for the last year, our podcast has always been about like, what ways is Warner Brothers fucking up now?
I mean, they are. I don't know what else to say.
I guess that's the last word on Warner Brothers and DC. And again, every time you feel like, have they turned the corner? DC's finally getting their act together, and then take 3 steps forward and 12 steps back. So let's take a break, and on the other side, let's go to the other big studio and talk about a brand new Marvel show that just dropped. Episode 1 of Secret Invasion. So Brittany, you're a big fan of Paramount Plus, aren't you?
Oh, I am indeed. That is the home of one of my favorite shows, which I know some people, I've talked about it.
You're not the demographic.
I know I'm not the demographic, but the show I'm talking about is obviously Yellowstone. If you don't know, I love Yellowstone, and it's literally one of the most like, I'm saying, I know a lot of people like, oh, it seems like it's for like rednecks or something like that. I promise you, the drama is so good. It's just, and if you're a fan of Twilight, there's like an actor from Twilight that's on there.
Well, it's one of the biggest shows in the world.
Yes.
And it's got these like great spinoffs, right? Because isn't 1923 a spinoff of Yellowstone, and 1883? Am I getting those years correct?
No, it's 1923. I'm not there yet on the spinoffs.
But it's got like Harrison Ford and Helen Mirren. Like,
yes,
that's crazy that those are like actors you get for TV shows.
Tim McGraw and Faith Hill are on the 18 one. If you are a country fan, which Tim McGraw is honestly a really great actor. Don't know if you've ever seen Friday Night Lights, but he's a great actor. So They're great. Those are great things to check out. I have to wait for my mom and brother to watch it because we are such a fan of the show. Teen Wolf is also on
Yeah.
Paramount Plus, and they released a new movie with the Tyler Hoechlin is in it and back. So I'm excited to watch that finally when I get around to it. I know it's been like 2 months now, but it's hard to coordinate our schedules.
Well, the reason we're bringing up Paramount Plus is that if you click on the link in the description to this podcast, you can actually stream Paramount Plus for 1 month for free. We're just excited that we get to share Paramount Plus with all of our listeners. So click on the link that you see in the description and stream Paramount Plus for free for a month. Try it. If you don't like it, you can cancel. But if you love it, if you love Yellowstone, Teen Wolf, Star Trek, all of the Star Treks are on Paramount Plus. Do that and you'll help us out in the process. I feel like it's been a while since we talked about an MCU thing.
Yeah, it has.
It was kind of nice to have the MCU back on your screen.
It is in a way. Not, everyone knows that the opening credits are like AI, which apparently they're saying it's on purpose because it's supposed to feel like disjointed and like basically the same kind of stuff that Andy's saying for like the Speed Force stuff. Like it's supposed to be like disconnected and weird because of the whole point of, Secret Invasion is who's a Skrull, who isn't, and who's pretending, blah, blah, blah. Which I'm like, I'm pretty sure you still could have had somebody who's like a human still make something that feels that way, which is the problem.
I mean, I'm not as bothered by the credits. I know that like that was a big deal when the show dropped, and it was like they confirmed that they hired an AI studio to handle the opening credits. I'll say this: I have some friends who are artists who embrace AI, and I have artist friends who fucking hate AI. And I think it's two camps. And I think the artists who hate AI, the reason they hate AI is that it's almost like we're lumping everything into like the generic term of AI. Because I think what most artists hate about AI is that it basically just plagiarizes other people's art without properly crediting it, right? So like a lot of times when you're on like Instagram or TikTok and you see like AI generated profile pictures or whatever, it's actually like they're taking your face and then filtering it through images based on other people's art style. And that's fucked up because it's like, if you're the artist, like, wait, I recognize that. That's actually a drawing I did. And you just picked it off the internet and put it on someone's face. That I understand why artists hate AI. But I do have artist friends who are like, I can use AI as another tool for my art. And I feel like that's where the Secret Invasion stuff is. So like we see AI and we get kind of mad that like they're using AI, but like, are they using AI in that like, plagiaristic way? Or are they using AI? Like, is there an artist at that studio using AI as a tool to create these original images? That I mean, I don't know the answer to that, but I feel like it's probably more that than the other. Because if it was the other, like Disney could get like, Disney is a big corporate behemoth, but they're not going to like willingly plagiarize artists without proper credit. Although that said, I mean, a lot of MCU stuff has been, not properly crediting the comic book creators too. So I wouldn't put it past them.
Yeah. But besides that little snippet, I did like the episode, but it felt like it was missing maybe a little bit moments of story.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm not the only one. I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
Watching the whole episode, I was thinking like, did I miss something? Did I start on like episode 3? Like, I don't know what's happening.
That's how it felt. Like, again, if they're trying to keep everything feeling disjointed, like, okay, but like it was a little too much where I was just like, all of a sudden the Skrulls are a problem. When did this start? Right.
Because our only interaction with Talos, or just Skrulls in general, is Captain Marvel, the very end of Far From Home. And I think not even like the end, like the mid-credit sequence. Like if you didn't stay for the credits, you didn't know that Nick Fury wasn't really Nick Fury.
Yeah.
Which is wild. And then I think the very end of WandaVision, right? There's a Skrull who recruits Monica Rambeau. Those are the only times you see Skrulls in the entire universe. And now, like you said, all of a sudden it's like Skrulls are a problem. So
yeah, but the thing is, in like Captain Marvel, it was kind of like, okay, these Skrulls are actually good people trying to find a home. And it's kind of like, so they kind of rebranded the Skrulls as not to be
Right. That was the big switch up in Captain Marvel because everyone went in thinking, oh, Skrulls are bad guys. I remember this from the comics. And they're like, oh, actually, they're victims.
Yeah. So they made them look like,
which was cool. I like that.
Yeah,
twist.
which is so good. And then we haven't heard enough of things about Skrulls really in that time period to where we have any trust that they're bad.
Right.
Which
again, there's a whole other thing about like Nick Fury too, that it's like he's over the hill, he's lost a step, he hasn't been same since the blip. And it's like, do we know any of that? We've like
yeah, and especially if he's been building Saber and on Saber, it's like, how do you know he's not the same? Like if you haven't been in a personal vicinity with him, how do you know he's not the same? Yeah. Exactly. And especially as like a soldier type of like thing. So yeah, it just felt like there was a lot of stuff that like, I don't know, they were like telling, not showing. So it was just like, I don't know why. So I felt a little disconnected.
And it was like late at night when I watched it too. So I was thinking like, did I doze off? Did I miss something? So I would rewind like, no, I watched that. So it's like I didn't miss anything. So it's just like, they're kind of like telling it in a way that maybe, to your point, maybe in the next episode they'll fill in some backstory, because I know they're hinting at like some like Fury's when he dusted, like feeling some type of way about that, which I guess which is true for a lot of people. I'm sure if you were to like dust away and come back 5 years later without any knowledge, it must be weird. But I feel like other shows have done better describing that, because wasn't it Hawkeye that showed the blip from Yelena's perspective, where she like goes in the bathroom and comes out same, like to her only like seconds had passed, but it was like 5 years and she was in somebody's like, that's cool, and I can understand, I get that, but like I don't know, it's only one episode. I liked the vibe of it. I liked that it was like straight up spy movie. It very much in like the Winter Soldier vein.
Oh yeah, that 100% works.
Yeah. One of the things that, I mean, Winter Soldier is still my favorite MCU movie. And it's the most grounded of all the MCU movies still. Do you feel like that's one of the, like leaning into that, especially as the rest of the MCU is getting more cosmic and getting more like mystical, leaning into like the spy stuff is still where they should put their bread and butter?
I think so, because it works. And then there's like ways to make the cosmic stuff also be spy, which is what they're kind of doing with the show.
That's true, right? The Skrulls are pretty cosmic. That's true.
Yeah. So I think it can work to their advantage. But yeah, it just felt like there was some stuff missing in this episode that would have made it feel a little bit more solid. I'm kind of mad about what they did at the end of the episode, because like, what, are you kidding me?
Yeah, I mean, we'll spoil, because again, the same thing like The Flash. If you haven't watched episode 1 of Secret Invasion yet, it's been out for like 5 days at this point, we'll spoil the ending of the first episode and a couple other things. Like, for example, a character who is well known in the MCU is revealed to be a Skrull. My question is, and I'll just say it's Agent Ross from Black Panther. Are they implying that Agent Ross has always been a Skrull, or the Skrull just pretended to be Agent Ross for that one?
Yes, exactly. That's why I'm like, I felt like there's certain details that are being left out, where we don't know how long someone's been a Skrull, and just like, when did all these rise ups of like, okay, Skrulls are the ones who are doing these attacks, like when did this start like happening?
But also, like, you're right, if they're all about displacement since the blip, and I'm still not sure how that works, like,
because they've been looking like regular people for the most part to live in this society. Is just like, how have they been, how has Skrulls as a whole been particularly displaced? Like, we don't have the whole like knowledge of like, was there more with the Skrulls that we knew of, we didn't know, because Talos has been Keller the last several years. So it's just like, where is that? And
also, like, so when they have, like, they can impersonate anyone, but they have like all these humans kind of like in these pods, and then they impersonate them. So are they implying that like,
they're keeping them alive longer to have
keep their memories,
like to keep their memories better? Yeah. So basically.
But that's kind of fucked up too then, right? Like, they can only take a person's identity. They can't just morph into like a new identity. So if that's the case, like, they are, I mean, this is why Skrulls are always considered bad guys in the comics, is that they have to basically they steal your identity. They're body snatchers.
Yeah.
They're not just shapeshifters. They have to steal who you are in order to survive. So like that is kind of fucked up. But the point I was trying to get at earlier is like the Falcon and Winter Soldier had a similar plot line where it was like the blip happened and these people were displaced, and the Flag Smashers were like these quote unquote terrorists. Yeah. And now we have the Skrulls who are also like, is there going to be any crossover between the Flag Smashers and the Skrulls, or did they forget that the Falcon Winter Soldier happened? Because like the whole time I was watching, is thinking like, didn't they do this in Falcon Winter Soldier already? Like it seems like the same kind of setup.
Yeah, it's just like, why weren't some of the Skrulls part of the Flag Smashers, or they're gonna get,
or maybe they were.
And then they realize like, you know, that they are not being able to be their authentic selves, and you know, like it just felt like there's a little bit disconnect, and I get it's just the first episode, but.
So what did you think of the new additions to the Marvel Universe with Emilia Clarke and Kingsley Ben-Adir? Although we didn't see him much as Garrick, but and Olivia Colman as the British spy lady.
Well, I love Olivia Colman. She's like one of my favorite actresses. She's so good in everything she does. Emilia's good. I just feel like I haven't seen enough of like her yet, but I'm pretty sure she's gonna be playing the double like agent type of role.
It didn't even strike me until afterwards that she's supposed to be the little girl from Captain Marvel, because Talos and have a daughter, and that's her as an adult now, because Captain Marvel took place 30 years ago. I always forget. It took place in the 90s. Yes.
So yeah, she's supposed to be that little girl, which that makes sense. That tracks.
Yeah. I wonder if there's going to be any kind of, like, I don't know if Emilia Clarke's in the Marvels, but like, you know, Monica and her were the same age essentially in Captain Marvel. Could you bring in Monica to be like, hey, you guys were friends 30 years ago, maybe talk some sense to her? Because we see Sam Jackson in the Marvels trailer.
Yeah.
So, like, he's back somehow after Secret Invasion happens. He's back on Saber with Captain Marvel and friends. So I don't know.
Yeah.
This is the gift and curse of shared universes though, right? Because it's like, you know,
where does it connect?
Exactly. And that's always like, why does the Batman and Joker work better than the DCEU stuff is that they don't have to be beholden to stuff that happens in other movies.
Yeah.
Because as much as we're like praising or criticizing it, part of it is always about like, well, they did this in the other show, and if the like, where are the Avengers and all that kind of stuff. Like it is a snake eating its own tail sometimes when it comes to shared universes.
Yeah.
You were a fan of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., right?
Yes. They released a guide for Secret Invasion and things you should watch, and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is one of them. So, and everyone had said that they saw the actress who plays, no, not Chloe. They actually said they saw the actress who plays Simmons around the set while filming. But then some people like, she could be directing an episode, but she just started doing some directing. But I was like, no, I think she's in Secret Invasion. And so, you know, maybe she really is, because also they said Nick Fury's just a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, not the director. And as if we know, the director is what's his name, the bald guy.
Yeah. I forgot. It's been so long.
But yeah, he was the
new Coulson.
Yes, he was the new Coulson.
Well, there are rumors that, like you mentioned Simmons, but Daisy Johnson perhaps might make a return to the MCU, or not even a return. They will canonize Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as part of the MCU, or maybe do it in the Daredevil way, where like maybe Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is canon, maybe just the stuff we want is canon, the way some of the Netflix stuff is canon, some isn't. So, I mean, if it makes sense too, because the Kree were such a big part of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and of course the Kree and the Skrulls have a long history. So it would stand to reason if you were going to find a way to bring any Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. characters, the best way would be through this show, but that's yet to be seen.
I just think it's funny that they try to say that like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. wasn't canon to the MCU when Nick Fury is like literally on a couple episodes.
Well, it's almost like at some point, because the first two seasons were definitely part of the MCU, because like there was an episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that set up Winter Soldier. Like they did a whole episode where like basically putting the helicarrier in place to be there at that Winter Soldier. So like first two seasons, definitely all of the same continuity. But I think there came a point when, particularly when Feige got full control over the movie stuff, and Perlmutter was still in charge of the TV stuff, where he was like, fuck anything that's not me. And they started like diverging. So like you could use a, you know, variant multiverse type explanation to say there was like a point when Agents of Shield is no longer canon to the movies, and it would have veered off in its own timeline. And especially because there was so much time travel and stuff in the later seasons of Agents of Shield.
Yeah, but like it's I don't know, because then there's like people who are on Agent Carter, and then like they used, the Agent Carter Jarvis.
Yeah, in Endgame. And then of course they cast the, Haley Atwell was the actress, but they also cast the what's his name to play Howard Stark from the movies. The young guy, Dominic something.
Dominic Cooper.
Yeah, Dominic Cooper as Howard. So like it's weird what's canon and what's not canon. Like especially if you just a lot of it is just behind. Again, it talks about the Flash. A lot of it's just studio stuff, right? It's like we don't want to count that as canon because you did that and I didn't do that. So screw you guys. Even like Across the Spider-Verse mentions Doctor Strange and that nerd from the universe 1999, but I'm sure Kevin Feige's like, don't drag me into your movie.
Well, they kind of did because Donald Glover is literally
right, and they brought in Donald Glover as the Prowlers. I wanted to ask you when we were talking about the Flash, do you think it hurt the Flash that it came out after Across the Spider-Verse? Like
probably. Like
you have a movie that gets the multiverse so well, and then the next one comes out and it's this.
Yeah, I think it did. And I think the fact that it still ended up doing better over the weekend, box office wise, than the Flash just like proves that. Yeah,
it's not superhero fatigue. People are saying superhero fatigue, but if it was superhero fatigue, Guardians
none
and
of these
Spider-Verse
done well. Yes, exactly.
Like those are still hits. So it's at the end of the day, make a good movie.
Yeah.
And hey, speaking of superhero fatigue, what's nerd popping, Brittany?
So they released Kraven the Hunter
finally
and poster, which I need to buy that poster.
Well, I thought about you when I saw it shirtless. Is he shirtless? He's got the vest on at least, right?
Yeah, he's got the vest on, but it's like open and his abs. Yeah, everyone knows I just love Aaron Taylor. So beautiful. And so I think I tweeted, I'm sorry, but this movie is for the girls and the gays. So I'm sorry if you're not on board with this movie. It's because you just don't think Aaron Taylor Johnson is hot. Like, that's it. That's why I'm seeing the movie. I don't care what it's about.
Yeah.
Watch it.
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess making a movie about a Russian killer and I'm all there. Like, the fact that it's Kraven the Hunter, I'm kind of like, why? Why is this a Kraven the Hunter movie? Because, again, I am not the biggest expert on Spider-Man lore, but Kraven is not like got lion blood, right? Like he's not Morbius but with lions, is he?
I'm not gonna lie, I don't know much about Kraven the Hunter, but I know he's a very bad person.
Yeah, he's a bad guy, he's a killer, but like the movie implies that he got bit by a radioactive lion or some shit.
Pretty much, but you know what, Aaron Taylor's hot and who cares, come on. Like,
yeah, well, I thought about you when that came out, so I figured,
oh yeah,
you're living your best life with.
I am. I'm totally gonna go see that. So if that movie, if they're like, this movie only made $8, it's because I saw it. Just me.
Hey, Sony is determined to keep putting out Spider-Man adjacent movies. So
yes, they are. But
who knows which? I mean, and it teases the Rhino at the end of the trailer, which is like,
I don't care about that.
Yeah, but my thing is like, okay, like what, this dude got bit by a radioactive rhino? Like, what is happening? Like, Rhino is not like half rhino, is he? I thought he just wears a suit.
Yeah, I think he did just wear a suit, but now they're just like, hey, let's just make them weird mutants.
So I'm happy for you. I'm happy you get some half naked Aaron Taylor Johnson, but I don't know why it's got to be a Kraven the Hunter movie. But and I said this from even before he was cast, like, the only thing that makes Kraven an interesting character is that he's this hunter dude who's hunting Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I don't care that he's hunting other things. Like he's only interesting because he's hunting Spider-Man. And he can clearly not hunt Spider-Man because the thing about Sony's deal with Marvel is they can make Spider-Man movies that don't have Spider-Man in it. And that's the deal.
Yeah.
Anyway, what's nerd popping for me, it's kind of all tied in. It's all thematic. We talked earlier about the end of the Snyderverse, at least as far as DC is concerned. Mm-hmm. But over the weekend, last weekend, Netflix had their big Tudum conference in Brazil, and they released some, not a full trailer, but they released some behind the scenes footage at his new movie called Rebel Moon, which I thought looked really interesting. And say what you will about Zack Snyder. I know that guy has his passionate followers, and if you say anything ill about Zack Snyder, they will hunt you down like Craven and bite you like a lion. But I'm no Zack Snyder hater. I wasn't the biggest fan of his DC movies, but I'm interested in Rebel Moon. I think it looks really, really cool.
That was the one that he originally pitched to be a Star Wars movie.
Exactly.
Right?
Like it's I mean, and if you read the synopsis, it sounds very much like a Star Wars movie. It's about like these lone rebels who are fighting this giant evil empire and the like on a desert planet. And I mean, it's got very much Star Wars vibes, and it's because he pitched it to be a Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
And you know, I think I'm interested in seeing how it is. He's got this partnership with Netflix now, and Army of the Dead was cool.
Yeah, I like that movie a lot, and I'm not hugely into Zack Snyder, but I loved that movie a lot. So I'm sure Rebel Moon will be fun.
Yeah. I mean, again, I don't love 300. I understand like the appeal of that movie. Watchmen, I thought was fine. I wasn't a huge fan of Sucker Punch.
I
did
Sucker
like
Punch.
Dawn of the Dead. Which interestingly was written by James Gunn. So
I don't remember if I've actually seen Dawn of the Dead.
yeah, his Dawn of the Dead is probably the best Zack Snyder movie, honestly.
Okay.
Oh no, I take that back. The best Zack Snyder movie, my favorite Zack Snyder movie, is the Michael Jordan documentary he did back in the 90s. when they used to put out like VHS tapes of basketball players back in the day. Anyway, so yeah, check out Rebel Moon. I'm sure a trailer will be dropping soon. It's coming out in December. And I thought it was, speaking of Star Wars, this is not nerd popping, but did you see there's a title for the Daisy Ridley Star Wars movie?
I didn't see that there was a title, but I heard like apparently the synopsis leaked, and I just don't know if they're trying to like do a movie where you move on from Rey too. Like that's what it kind of sounded like, and I was like, I don't know about this.
It's called New Jedi Order, and I wonder if it's why they changed the Captain America movie from New World Order to Brave New World.
Maybe.
But it's called New Jedi Order, and to your point, the synopsis says it's about her 15 years after Rise of Skywalker, training a new Jedi Order, and then there's a male and a female Jedi apprentice, I guess. Padawan, that's the word. I forgot my Star Wars terminology. And she sees in the female Padawan, it's kind of like, I don't know, the synopsis is implying that like she could either be, she's like Ben Solo, basically. She could either be the greatest Jedi or the worst Sith. And I don't know, like, it's been a while since Star Wars has been a movie thing. It's been a TV thing for some time.
Yeah.
Are you like psyched at all for more Star Wars?
They bring back Adam Driver.
That's it.
Because I was one of those people who, though I do like Daisy Ridley, I just did not really feel Rey. And I always feel like if I said something, people would just be like, oh, it's because you don't want like a girl Jedi or, you know, stupid stuff like that. And it's like, no, that's not it.
Famous misogynist Britney Monet, right?
Yeah, it was just like, there's just something about Rey that never like fully like had me like, okay, yeah. So...
I wonder if it had anything to do with the fact that, like, talking about hype earlier, they hyped Force Awakens to be John Boyega's movie. And the big twist in the movie is, oh, I'm just a janitor and the real star of the trilogy is this white chick over here.
Maybe that's what it was. That maybe just like, okay, Rey's just okay. I don't know if that's what it was, but like
white feminism is the reason you don't feel Daisy Ridley, I think.
Maybe. But like also I just feel like Rey didn't get her proper like shot in a way, even though she was like the protagonist for those 3 movies. I just feel like she didn't get as much like
well, it's interesting too, because I feel like the Star Wars films is very similar to what we were saying about DC earlier in the podcast. Like the 3 basically Skywalker saga enders, as much as we like the middle one, they didn't have like studio like heads change, but instead of like just following a vision through, it was reacting. That's what DC's problem was. Like, oh shit, BVS is bad. Let's react and change Suicide Squad, change this, change it. Like, there's an alternate world in which like they just kept the course, and I wonder if DC would be in better footing had they just, you know what, we don't love it, but Let's just stick to it and see where we go from there instead of like changing the course. And that's the thing with Star Wars. It's like, you know, even with Force Awakens, I feel like they kind of rushed into it. It was like, JJ, what are you good at? We'll just do that. And then we'll figure it out. And then they gave it to someone with a real vision. And again, here's my Last Jedi bias.
I love The Last Jedi.
And Brian Johnson's like, I see Star Wars this way. And they're like, cool. And then it was like, oh, wait, like a lot of people don't like your vision, even though it made $1 billion. Let's change it again. Let's go back to the first guy. And it was all just reacting. And say what you will, like, I think one of the reasons Mandalorian is successful, one of the reasons Andor is successful, is that they're like, Favreau, Gilroy, do your thing. Make it work.
Yeah. But then it's like everyone else, I feel like also because so many people loved The Mandalorian, they're like, oh, see, it's so much better than the stupid, like, you know, that they're like, I feel like because it fell more in line with the audience that they were trying to cater, they let them continue to do what they wanted to
That's
do.
true. Well, but I'll also argue like Boba Fett, though, was like a reaction. It's almost like, oh, Mandalorian is doing well. Let's do Boba Fett. And it was like, no one really wanted Boba Fett.
And then it's also because like I felt like they could have gave him a better overall story.
Yeah, well, and even within Boba Fett, it almost felt like they were reacting because it was like, oh shit, no one's feeling Boba Fett. Let's just do Mandalorian 2.5. You know?
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't know how this became. This is the podcast wrap up. It became the Star Wars episode. So Brittany, how can people find you on the internet?
You can find me at Hi Brittany Monet on Twitter, Instagram, Hive, Tumblr. And then you can also check out my other podcast at litroom_podcast. And yeah, that's kind of it that I got going on for now.
All right. You can find me on Twitter at @TheRealChow, _real_Chow. And on Instagram at RealKeithChow. Follow the Nerds of Color at the Nerds of Color on all platforms. Go to hardknockmedia.com to find this podcast and give us a rating and a review on your favorite podcast platform. Go to youtube.com/the Nerds of Color to find our videos. Support us on patreon.com/the Nerds of Color. You can buy merch at tpublic.com. Search for the Nerds of Color. That's it for Hard NOC Life this week. Until next time.
Robert Pattinson is the people's Batman.
I vote for George Clooney.
Okay, I vote for both of them.